welcome to Interactive Fiction Writing with Ink. I'm James the Tech. I'm going to show you what I've been doing with this game app that I've been working on during these episodes. And we're going to see if we can improve it and make it a little bit better. So let's kind of get right to it, except I will also mention that if you are interested in where to download Ink, how to start off using it, there are other videos that are archived on our YouTube, and you're more than welcome to go to the YouTube at Your Library Richmond and check those out. So let me show you what the app looks like so far. And when this is created into an APK file, which will be put onto Android phones, it's going to look very similar to this. Not this coming Thursday, but the Thursday after it. You'll be able to see how to do that, and we'll be doing that at 3:30 Pacific time. And so let's see here. So far now I've got that you can create your character, and you have these options. And I'm going to go with he, him, which is my preferred pronoun. And now I also have it that you can choose an occupation, and there's something else that I discovered that you can do that's actually really cool with once you've done things like this. I'm going to show you that today too. So I'm going to choose the rogue, and my background is going to be an elf. So greetings, elf rogue. It's rolled my stats. I have a +2 on strength, +4 in intelligence, +5 on dexterity, +2 in constitution, and my health is 15. One thing that I have noticed when I have tested out this app is that I've made the combat with the monsters way too difficult, and there's no way that you can survive it. There's just no way. So I am going to have to think about fixing that as well. So I'm going to continue. So the premise of the story is there's a festival of the Lich because the Lich were defeated many generations ago, and there's a dungeon up the hill where the Lich is rumored to still possibly live. Bailey, who owns the weapon store called Broadswords and More Stall, he says that he has a map, and he offers it to you. So if you choose, I'm celebrating, just not in the mood to dress up, the game ends and you have to start again. You can say I'd rather be adventuring for real. One thing that you can do with this that I really like too is you can have this kind of background, or you can change it to the dark theme, which is a little bit easier in my eyes personally. So here we go. I'm going to buy, you know what, this time I'm not going to buy the map here. I'm going to show you this one first. I'm not going to buy the map. I'm just going to go right to some weapons. So now we have a choice. Weapons, armor, tools, and magical items. Be on your way, which will just go to the dungeon, or you can check your inventory and see what you have. So if I check my inventory, it tells me I'm carrying a rucksack, 100 gold, I'm armed with my fists, wearing a hefty wool sweater, and then I have these options of checking, check or switch your weapons, which right now, because I don't have any weapons, all I have is my hands and feet, so I don't really have any options. Return to the quest is going to take me back to Bailey's, because that's where I left. And so here, if I go to weapons, it says, none at this moment, I can buy a sword for 20 gold. So there are actually more options here for weapons, but what I've done is I've made it so that depending upon the character class that you've chosen, only certain things are available to you. So here for the rogue, all that's available to the rogue is the sword for 20 gold. But if I were to go back to tools and magical items here, I have the option of a set of lockpick tools, a skeleton key, 50-foot hemp rope, a map of the dungeon for 75 gold now, so it's no longer 25. So let me just show you. So keep that in mind. If I go back to the beginning, and I can create my character, this time I'm going to choose they, them, and I'm going to choose the warrior. So here, also going to choose the elf, and I'll show you why in a moment. So here I am, the elf warrior. I've rolled all my stats. I'm going to continue. I want to make sure that I'd rather be adventuring for real, because the other one will end the game. And here, I'm also not going to buy the map. I'm going to go to some weapons. So here now, if I go weapons, because I said I was a warrior, it didn't work. Hold on. So we're gonna look into that and see why that didn't work. It did bring up the bow with 12 arrows for 70 gold, and it did that because I think I know why it didn't work. It did that because I chose warrior elf. So if you choose elf, the elves get the bow, but none of the other backgrounds do. So if you're a dwarf or you're a human, you don't get the bow. The dwarf will get the axe. So that's something. So here, so now if I say, let's say a bow, and I'm going to say tools and magical items, you'll notice much less than the thief. So now I can get the rope, I can get the map for 75 gold, or I can say nothing. So I'm going to get the rope, and then I'm going to be on my way. And then the game starts. So I'm going to leave it at that so that we can look at the code. So going to the code, there we are. So here's my code. And let's take a look at why that warrior didn't work. Why it just kind of only said sword. So actually, just a couple things before we start here. So a couple things that are new with the newest version of Ink, which is their official 1.0, is that you can go to view, you can toggle theme, and you go to dark theme, which makes, personally on my eyes, this is easier to read. Something else that you can do is you can go to view and you can increase the text. I'm going to go to 150, and now I can read that much better, and I'm willing to bet that you can see that much better on the screen as well. And just so, there we go, just so that we don't, so I don't take up the entire screen so that you can't see what's actually happening with the programming, I'm going to make my myself a little bit smaller. And here, there we go. So here, now you remember on the right hand side the game plays. It doesn't show the graphics and everything like it does on the web, but it does show you the coding on the other side. And then instead of showing you the graphics, it will show you, it'll say image, and it'll tell you what image it's going to show and where it's going to find that image. So it is a little important that you take a look at all that. So here, let's go to, I'm going to choose he, him, and then I'm going to choose warrior, and I'm going to choose elf. Rolls my stats, continue, and then I'm going to adventuring for real. And I'm going to go to some weapons, and then I'm going to look at weapons. Okay, so now here, none at the moment, sword for 20 gold, a bow with 12 arrows for 70 gold. And what I wanted to do right now actually was I wanted to make it so that the game understood what happens when you shoot the bow. So there's actually, I was going to create a variable so that there was actually a distance between you and the creatures, which would also possibly give you a run feature if run away and survive another day kind of thing. So here, let's go to so basically this is under purchases, and if you remember on the very left hand side we have our included files. So you can see all of them. So all the files are basically different portions of the game, which makes it really, well, not really, but it makes it much easier to keep track of where everything is. So now I'm going to go down to where you can buy stuff. So you can see here, and I've changed things a little bit. So what I have is in the menu where it says none at this moment, you can see on the right hand side where it says none at this moment. If you choose it, you'll notice that instead of having the plus, which is, remember, the sticky choice, so that means that it's a choice that the person can make, but they can make it multiple times regardless how many times they come back here. If it's an asterisk, it's a one-time choice and it disappears forever if you choose it. So what I have now is that if you choose none at this moment, then it is going to go to equipment buy. Oh, that's why. Okay. Oh no, none at this moment is fine. If you go to a sword for 20 gold, so what it does first is, let's just go through this one part at a time. Is it going to open up a if or statement? So it's actually going to be looking for something, and actually in this case it's not an or statement, it's just an if statement. So the minus sign is kind of your if. So I have minus, and wizard is my variable. So my variables are all in my original main ink file, which mine is called Lich King, and I have them all under stats. So right here from line 51 to line 66, you can see I've got elf, dwarf, human, rogue, wizard, warrior, and they're all at 0. So basically I have it 0 means that you're not any of those things. 1 means that's what you've chosen. So that's how the game is going to interpret it. It's kind of like a true or false, on and off kind of switch. So I'm going to go back to purchases. I'm going to say that if wizard is, so I have it if wizard is greater than 0. The reason why I have that and I don't have it say 1 is because if you choose wizard, it's going to be 1. But if you choose wizard and then the they them pronouns, it's actually going to be more, and I believe then it's going to be a 4. So I have this so that's greater than 0, because if it's wizard is equal to 1 to 4, basically that's how, you're a wizard, and so that's why I have it like that. And the reason why there's all those different values is because I have a different photo or a different image that is going to show depending upon the pronoun that you've chosen and the and the class. If I could find, I'm using free to use copyright free images for this from Pixabay, and I mean, if I could find really detailed, really specific things like like a dwarf warrior, I would, but I'm very limited because I'm not going to pay for the image, and not that I don't think that you should, because I do, but I am doing this for you, just for showing. If I was doing this professionally, then I would definitely want to pay somebody to do it. Okay, so here we go. We have the minus sign. So we have if wizard, which is my variable. If the variable is greater than 0, and then colon, so that's your then it's gonna say we have no weapons for a wizard. Perhaps you. Here you'll notice that it's cut off, right? So if that ever happens to you with ink, if you change this, because you can make this smaller or bigger, and you just change this like this, then it corrects that. And it tends to do that when you first open the program. Okay, perhaps you could try the magic items, and then it goes back to equipment buy, and you can go to magic items, and then it closes that if then statement. So in that case, if you're okay, so I didn't choose wizard, I chose warrior. So now here, the double asterisk means that the choice is actually going to be a sub choice of weapons up here, because weapons is the single plus. Anything double underneath it is a sub choice. So here, let me show you. So if I click on none at this moment, you can see, and see, it works here, which is oh no, wait, sorry, we'll go to weapons, and then none at this moment, sword, bow. No, it didn't work. Okay, never mind. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the first menu. So here, weapons, you can see the weapons here on the right hand side is line 16. If I click on that, it goes to that menu. Just to give you an idea, if I didn't have this as a sub choice with 2 asterisks and just have 1 asterisk, then you'll notice that now the choice appears under weapons. So I wanted as a sub choice for weapons, so I'm going to put that asterisk back, so it's a double asterisk. And now when I choose weapons, it tells me sword for 20 gold. So if I look at the sword for 20 gold, there's nothing between the asterisk and the square bracket. So square bracket means that if I choose it, then that text disappears. So just to give you an idea of how that works, and I might have to reset the game just so I can do the rest of it, but I want to show you this. So if I take away those square brackets and I choose a sword for 20 gold, then you can see it still says a sword for 20 gold. But if I put in the square brackets, it's going to disappear, and then you'll see it disappear. And there we go. So now it's disappeared. So I'm going to go back to weapons. So I can still fix this. So we know that sword works, and because the sword works for everybody. So here, so the axe is only going to work if you chose the variable warrior and dwarf. So warrior and dwarf. And I'm kind of wondering if the reason why it's not, I wonder if I need to give it a value, but I shouldn't have to, because if I just said warrior and I took out dwarf, I bet you it's gonna appear. So there we go. So I take a warrior. Now it says an axe for 40 gold. But I did say that I was going to be an elf, right? So let's put that and dwarf. And you'll notice too when I'm typing it. Actually, I don't know if this actually appears on OBS. Oh, you know what I just noticed is you're not actually seeing anything because my ink isn't up. Why isn't that up? Hold on. Well, I hope that I was just entertaining in the way that I was explaining everything, and that was interesting enough. Sometimes OBS drives me crazy when it does things like this. And oh, interesting. The reason why it's not showing up is because it's not even registering that it's open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close it. I'm going to save it. And I'm going to reopen it. And then that should correct it. There we go. That's what's supposed to be up there. So I don't know why it disappeared and why it just suddenly decided not to have it up there, but just to show you this again, I can go to View, I can go to Theme, choose Dark, and then I can go to View. I can go to Zoom Percent, go to 150, you can see this much better. Okay, so basically what I was just working on was, and the game isn't working because I was just in the middle of working on this variable here. So what I was talking about, just to give you the visual so you can see everything here, is if you have the choice of an axe for 40 gold, and you give it a variable choice, then, and you notice as soon as I fix the error, then suddenly the game starts to run. So that variable choice means that if I choose warrior and I choose dwarf, so let's go to create your character. I'm going to choose he, him, and then I'm going to choose warrior. And actually, let's just choose dwarf and just see if axe shows up. So I'm going to choose dwarf. So since I've chosen warrior and dwarf, you can see on line 44. And the double asterisk that you can see here, that's what I was talking about just a moment ago. That double asterisk means that it is a sub-choice of weapons, which is a single plus. And the only difference between the plus and the asterisk and choose for choices is that the plus is a sticky choice, stays forever. The asterisk is a single choice and will disappear after one use, which can be very handy. And that's actually why I have it for this, because I'm assuming that Bailey has one sword for sale. Bailey has one axe for sale. I mean, the player could technically buy 7 swords if they wanted to, but at the moment it doesn't mean anything to the game. So, but later on, if I wanted to add that, I'm sure I could. So let's see here. What was I doing here? Oh yeah. So warrior and dwarf for the axe. So over here now on the right hand side, let's just go to Bailey. Make sure I choose adventuring for real, and then some weapons. Go to weapons. Okay, it's gonna say axe. There we go. Okay, so sword for 20 gold, an axe for 40 gold. Axe is warrior and dwarf, and the hammer for 70 gold. Okay, so the hammer, and you see hammer on line 82. I have warrior and dwarf. So if I was to change that to warrior and elf, it disappears. Warrior and dwarf reappears. Okay, so maybe the reason why it only says sword, oh, that is why. Okay, so actually the game is working correctly. When you choose elf, all the only choices you can see on line 94, I have in the squiggly brackets, which basically is telling the program that it's looking at a variable. I have warrior and elf variable, you get the bow, and the sword. So yeah, so if you do choose the elf, that's actually how it's supposed to work. So actually, yeah, that's working correctly. So let's go back to choosing the elf. So let's go back to the bow, warrior and elf. I almost feel like everybody, if you're an elf, should get to use the bow, but I'm still going to keep that at warrior and elf. I haven't actually made any magic items for the wizards, but let's start from the beginning. So on the top, on the right hand side, there's the double arrow, and the single arrow, and and I noticed that I think OBS is still telling everybody that I am streaming Minecraft. That is awesome. That is really funny. And I may have just lost my ink again because sometimes ink crashes. You should be aware, and if it does, you want to make sure that you've been saving everything. So here we go. Here is my, and I didn't save that, but I can put that back in pretty quickly. So I'm going to go to theme. Oops, I'm going to go to change that to dark. Change this to 150. And then I'm going to go back to that line. and I need to put in the F, and I'm going to save it so that I don't miss it. So I got warrior and dwarf, and now let's choose the elf here. So let's go him, go warrior, and then elf, and then I'm going to go continue. And I'm celebrating, just not in the mood to dress up. I'd rather be adventuring for real. I'm going to go to some weapons and armor, and I'm going to go to weapons, and it should say the sword and the bow, which is that. So I'm going to choose the bow, and then I'm going to go check my inventory. And here, so I've got a rucksack, I've got 30 gold, I'm using my Fist of Fury, but I just bought a bow, so I mean, I'd really like to use the bow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go check or switch your weapons. And here, obviously you have your hands and feet, you have a bow, and you have 12 arrows. So I'm going to use the bow. And so now it says you're armed with the bow. So now I can check or switch my weapons. And it gives me these options. And it still says use the bow. And here's the thing, is that I was noticing that when I did the equipment inventory, which is right here, and I've been kind of reading about easier ways of keeping track of inventory. Oh, it just did it to me again. So I just realized why anytime I move the window for Inky, OBS shuts it off. So that's actually what's happening here. It does not like me moving it. And then it doesn't even acknowledge that it exists anymore. So let's, I'm going to fix that one more time, and then I'm not going to touch that again. There we go. Okay, so here it is. Make that bigger. Make that darker. There we go. And I kind of like the dark theme too, because everything's really vibrant colors, so I can see where the variables are, I can see what the text is, I can see where the choices are. And it makes it nice and easy. Okay, so as I was saying, if I go to equipment inventory, and then I go to check or switch your weapons, first it's going to check to see if you have a cursed weapon. And if you have a cursed weapon, it's not going to let you check your it's not going to let you switch your weapons. You have to use the cursed weapon until you find the fixed curse. Under weapons check here, so the clear is going to clear the screen if you're doing it as the phone app. It doesn't clear the screen on the just on the programming app. Tell me that what you're armed with. What I didn't want to have when you switch weapons is basically 0 means you don't have the weapon, 1 means you do, 2 means that you're using it. So if you're using the sword, for example, it's going to give sword the variable of 2. If you're using the mace, it's going to give the mace the value of 2, but you need to put sword back to 1 because sword is no longer in use. So the way that I had that was that there were all these if-then, if mace is equal to 2, then now mace is equal to 1, and sword is equal to 2, then sword is equal to 1. And I had this underneath every single one, and I just made this really long. So what I was hoping to do actually is to make one file. I called it equipment change, and this is to change equipment. So basically it checks this, and then it looks, but what I need is for something to tell the program that if you have armed this particular weapon, then don't put it down to 1, because if you put it down to 1, the rest of the program is going to think that you're not using it, because it's not going to be not going to be the right number. So here. So this is kind of what I have to think about. Is what I might be able to do is to create 2 variables that it's going to check. So instead of just checking 1 variable, it might check 2, and then if those 2 variables are true, then you're holding it. So I could possibly create a variable of calling it hold, and yeah, that's going to take some thought, because then how does it differentiate between any of these? unless I have it that, yeah, that's going to take some thought. Yeah, I'm not really sure. If anybody else has any ideas, definitely shoot them my way, and yeah, I can see if I can make this work. Because right now, if you go to equipment inventory, when it checks your weapon to say what you have, it says you are armed with a A_weapon, which is just and that seems to be sticking correctly actually, which is kind of interesting, because it should be changing the. Oh, actually, you know what? The A_weapon wouldn't change. Because it's not changing on equipment change, it's just the value of the variable sword, mace, or axe. So that's actually the issue. So, what I could do to make that a little bit easier is that if you go to weapon switch, it'll make everything go to 0, like you're disarming yourself completely, and then you're choosing another weapon. And I think that might work. So let's see. So I have it here on line 25. Checker, switch your armor, and then first it's going to go to cursed armor, which is on line 29. If cursed armor is 2, which means you're wearing the cursed armor. Or cursed weapon, I mean, if you're carrying a cursed weapon, then it'll say you were cursed and cannot change your weapons. You're carrying it'll say cursed sword, cursed mace, blah, blah, blah. Then it goes back to inventory choices. Otherwise, if you're not cursed, it's going to go to weapons check, which is line 39. So line 39 is going to clear the screen, and then it's going to say you're armed with, tell you what you're armed with. You have, and here it checks to see if you've bought it, because if it's greater than 0, then it means you own it, because 0 means you don't have it, 1 means you do, 2 means you are using it. I did think to myself that, for hands, if I have the value 0, then technically you're saying that you don't have your hands, they've been chopped off, so it should almost always be 1, but that could be a part of the game later on too. So obviously your hands and feet, sword, mace, axe, halberd, bow. So what I could do is go to equipment change, and I'm going to copy all of this because this is kind of what I need. And actually no, you know what? I can leave this here, because basically what this does is it takes all of the possible variables of the things that you could be using, and it puts it down to 1. So if anything is a 2, then it puts it down to 1. If something is a 0, it's going to ignore it, because the equal means it has to equal that number. It's not greater than, it's not less than, it has to be equal to that. So if you don't have an axe, for example, it's not going to give you an axe by making axe equal 1. It's going to check to see if axe is 2, which means you're using it, and then it's going to put it down to 1. And then if mace is equal to 2, then mace is equal to 1. Actually, you know what? This actually should just work, now that I think about it a little bit more. This is kind of how my thought process goes, because if a hands isn't equal to 2, then it's just going to ignore this, and it's just going to go to the next one. So that's why that's actually working. So if you're not sure if something is working here, I'm going to show you a little cheat way of figuring it out. So here, let me go to the right hand side, and I'm going to very quickly go to where I can look at my inventory. Okay, I'm celebrating, just on the mood. Nope, rather be adventuring. Some weapons, armor. I'm going to go for weapons, sword, and a bow. Okay, now let's check our inventory, because now I have 2 things actually 3 things I can switch between. So here, obviously your hands and feet, sword, bow, arrows. So let's say use the sword. So now it says you're armed with sword. Okay, so if I want to know what the value of sword actually is, I can go to equipment inventory, and I'm just going to do this temporarily because I'm trying to figure this out for the game itself. You're armed with weapon. I'm going to put here, I'm just going to go squiggly brackets. Sword is what I want to know, is the value, and it should be, you're armed with sword. It should actually be a 2 if you're armed with a sword, because 1 means that you own it. It does not mean that you're using it, and that's kind of an issue, because the rest of the game is going to rely on whether or not you have that. So if I go to equipment change, and so here, if sword is equal to 2, then it's going to put it down to 1. And I have a feeling that it did that. So basically, okay, yeah, I know exactly what happened here. So what I'm just gonna change where it actually looks for change equipment, and then that should actually fix it. So if I go to equipment inventory, and I go down to where it changes the weapons, which is right here. So sword equal to 1. So if it use the sword, if you click that, it's going to change a_weapon variable to mean sword. So that's why it says you are under the sword. Then it's going to give the sword a value of 2. It's going to give the damage 2 plus whatever your strength bonus is. So if you have a +2 on your strength bonus, the damage will be 4, which I've realized is not enough when you're fighting the monsters. Room return is going to come back to equipment inventory, and then it's going to go to change equipment. Okay. So this is what we're going to change. So room return is going to be equipment inventory. So equipment inventory, which is way up here. Inventory choices. I don't think I even have equipment inventory anymore. Oh, equipment inventory. No, sorry, that's up at the top. So that's where it goes back to. And room return is from change equipment, which is that file down here. So these are the two things that I need to fix. So I'm going to have that change to. It's going to go back to equipment inventory, which will be the top of the list. This time, if I go check or switch your weapons, it's still gonna give me. Oh, it's not gonna give me the option of the sword. Oh, that's interesting. So if I return to the inventory menu, you armed a sword. Now it's saying 2 now. Because sword. Why is it saying 2 now? So it can't be. Okay, I'm gonna put back what I just did. And check or switch your weapons. Now it says use the sword, because I'm using the bow. You're armed with sword, but now the sword value is 1. So, but if I take out these two things, and fix the game by telling it to go to equipment inventory. It's going to change it to 2. Let's see. You're armed with a bow. The bow is now 1. Check or switch your weapons. Use the sword. Okay, so now it's 2, which is actually what I want. So if I go, what I'm going to do actually is weapon switch is no longer going to be a comment. I'm actually going to make that a not. Knots are sections of game, and then I'm going to take out what I just put in basically, and I'm going to say that I want it to go to change your equipment, or equipment change rather, that file. The knot is called change equipment, and the return that it's going to have is actually going to be weapon switch. So then it's going to go down here. And that technically, you're armed with sword, now it's 2. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted. Okay, so now, I'm going to take all of this out here. that should fix that. And then it just sort of saves me from, like, if I ever want to add equipment, it just makes adding equipment much easier. And I'll show you how. I'll do one. Okay. Room return. Oop. That was wrong. Okay, there. Okay, so, and then it's going to put this knot down a little bit so that the 61, 62 that are blank lines don't really mean anything. It just makes it easier visually for me to see what's going on. I'm going to save it in case I lose this. So now, if I go down here to the bottom and I say check or switch your weapons, it's going to give me the option here. So I'm going to say use the bow. And then, so now it says 1 because it's still giving me that sword value. So I want to know what the value is of bow. So, and then if it's working, I can actually delete that. So here, taking the variable sword, that's telling me I'm going to change it to bow. It should be a 2. And it's 2. Perfect. Okay, so now that's working. Okay, so there we go. So now you're armed with the bow. You can switch your weapons. So use the sword. However, it's still saying use the bow even though you have it. So let's just take a look at that. If we go down to weapons switch, let's take a look at bow because that's kind of what we're at, and then we can look at that. So bow is equal to 1. Then give us use the bow. So bow isn't equal to 1. Bow is equal to 2. Use the bow. Okay, bow is equal to 1. Let's just see what that variable value is. Okay, so actually now it's saying the variable is 1, which is why it's giving me that. So let's just see if I say use the bow, you're armed with bow, check or switch your weapons. Oh, you know what? Because when I go check or switch your weapons, it immediately puts everything down to 1. Yeah, so that's why. Okay, so that can be changed. So let's go to equipment change, and we'll see. So if hands is equal to 2, then it's going to be equal to 1. So mace is equal to 2, then it's going to be equal to 1. So what I could do is I could make another variable for items here. I'm going to call it var, saying I'm creating a variable. I'm going to call it weapon carry. I'm going to say it's equal to nothing. Okay, so weapon carry equal to nothing. That's my variable. I'm going to go to equipment change, and here, if a hands is equal to 2, then it's going to change it to 1. However, if go to equipment inventory, save this before I lose it, and I'm going to say use the bow if, or pardon me, yeah, I guess I want another if statement here then, because I'm going to say if, okay, so bow is equal to 1, which it's going to be because everything goes back to 1, and another if statement within an if statement. I'm going to say minus sign weapon carry is equal to 1. Then it's just going to go to, it's just going to ignore it. It's kind of what I want. I really want it to go back to equipment inventory. I just would like it to ignore it. So if weapon carry is equal to 1, so actually what I'll say is weapon carry is less than 1. Then it's going to give me these options. And then I just need to close that statement. Okay, so now if bow is equal to 1, it's also going to check if weapon carry is less than 1, which means, well, I mean, we don't need to say less, then we can just say if it's equal to 0, then it's going to go down here. Okay, then it's going to say use the bow, in which case weapon carry is going to be equal to 1. Oh, I need not the minus sign, I need the tilde. And that's going to tell Inkle to change the value of that variable, and just one equal sign there. So now the weapon carry is not, let's just see what happened here. Oh, back at Bailey's. I've totally confused the program here. So let's check my inventory. I'm armed with a sword. Check or switch your weapons. Sword, bow, use the sword. And let's go use sword. Check or switch your weapons. And it's not showing up. So let's just see here. Okay, so weapon carry equals 1. But then I can't use the same variable for everything, because then it's just going to be checking that same variable. I don't think there is an easier way to do this than what I was doing before, which is kind of a shame. You know what? I'm going to have to think about that. All right, yeah, I'm going to have to think about that and think about what I'm going to do for that, because I don't think my original thought process is going to work. But that's all right, because the rest of it works so far. And that's not too bad. All right, so you can keep on trying your program too, and let us know how things are going. And thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope that you have a good night.